What's going on, guys? James Banks here, back with another interview throughout my EPL series. As we know, the event is now offline for the commentators and everything. It's online for the players. There's no interviews being had, so I'm taking over that role. And this time around, I've got none other than Karrigan from mousesports here. First of all, mate, how you doing?
I'm doing good, and you? It's a little different than normal, right? To do interview online.
Oh yes, very different. It's been a long time since we've been doing stuff like this. It kind of takes us back, but we're trying to get it done. We're trying to create some content around it. And I guess the first thing I want to start with you guys before we get onto the EPL stuff is just Katowice, because 2019 looked so amazing for you guys. You then win Ice Challenge at the beginning of the year as well. We're thinking, cool, Mouse Sports can be real top contenders for Katowice, but it didn't quite go to plan for you guys. So I wanted to know, like, after having a bit of time to reflect on it all, what did you make of it?
I mean, there's different things that went wrong, in my opinion. First of all, we didn't have the best boot camp. When it comes to that, you can always have a better preparation, but we did what we could with the preparation we had. I also think other factors as getting to know doing a match that the arena's closed down for fans maybe also played a toll on the players, and I think in the end we just didn't live up to the level we had from the end of the year, and also when we played the London tournament. So all in all, when you rewatch the games, I felt like as a team we didn't play as like usual, and also the level of the individual players wasn't there. So definitely a good way to learn and move on for rest of the year, and getting better as a team. We're still not there yet to be the best team in the world, but I think we'll get there eventually.
And in terms of what you've been doing this past month, right? Because it's nearly been a month between you playing officials when we get to play your first opening game versus phase. What has been kind of your schedule like? Did you have something set out? Did you boot camp at all anymore? Or have you kept it all online?
Obviously, we don't know much about the schedule at the moment. We don't know if you can travel or not. But what we did after Katowice was take a week break to really get prepared for the upcoming schedule with Pro League and then also obviously the major. So we decided not to boot camp. And also, once we got to know it was about to be held online, the tournament, we also decided not to boot camp in case something happens with people in the families at home. So it's better for us to stay home and play, which we usually do. And once all this Corona thing is over, then we take it from there and schedule a boot camp, obviously. So we're used to practice online. Maybe some teams are really not used to be at home and practice, but it's not really different from us compared to a normal online league, I would say.
So for you then, because out of some of the other top teams I've been speaking to, they said it's very different having to do this. It's not too much of a change then, if I'm right, for you guys.
I mean, obviously not in that sense that you're not used to play with each other next to each other at the boot camp and stuff like that. So in a way, it's like usually at for us, but obviously it's a big tournament, and a tournament like Pro League where you hold the thing online. It's gonna be a different game. People are not gonna be too scared online. That's obviously what I've seen in the matches.
Yeah.
That's not it's definitely not the same in that regard, but you just have to do the best out of it, and you have to be prepared for a lot of stuff online compared to on land because people take more chances, and also they feel more comfortable at home.
I've got to ask you this now because you laughed in a similar fashion to I did when I was seeing some of these results. What have you made of Pro League so far? Have you been like, kind of, did you expect some of these madness results to come in?
I expected madness, but not that much madness that we've seen so far. I mean, basically, I saw the games like one day, and I was like, okay, I mean that can be one upset. There
Mhm.
was three upsets during three matches, so it is different. And I also think the better teams wants to get into this rhythm again, then slowly their online form is gonna be better. We have been also playing some online qualifiers in the past last year, so it's not like a team like Navi who haven't played online for like nearly 2 years. I think that's very different. Suddenly you're competing online.
Yeah.
We have been playing the minor online qualifier as well from like was it nearly 1 year ago. So we're used to these online games and qualifiers. That means also I think we have a little advantage besides the other top teams.
Now, some of the teams you've got in your group, right? We've got FaZe, G2, OG, are some of the prominent names. You've got BP and Tyler in there as well. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how you would kind of think about each of the teams that you'll be going up against here? Because some names will be names you're very used to facing, then other names are kind of the unknown. And I think for me as well with Tai Lu, I know they've had their headquarters moved over to Ukraine at the moment, so they've been able to play a bit more in Europe. They could be quite an interesting one. So I want to see where you think about these teams and what you know of them so far.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, FaZe and G2 and us, I think we're the main favorites to make it through.
Mm.
But that said, it's online, so being a main favorite is basically not really being a favorite, in my opinion. So obviously, FaZe and G2 is the teams we've been played against lately. Obviously, FaZe been playing really good against them on LAN. G2 is our upcoming team, which is number 3 in the world right now. So they're doing really great lately, and I think that's one of the places where they can keep it on their form online. So I think those two teams are gonna be fighting with us for the top spot. Besides that, I think Virtus.pro really need to step up, and I think this is one of their chances online to do it. I don't know how the internet issue is gonna be. Obviously, that can be a main factor as well for them. Um, Coming to Tyler, I can really see Tyler win like 2 games in this group. Um, just with what I said, like they're playing really aggressive CS, and if you played at a LAN, you also play it like even more aggressive online, right? So that can be some moves you don't expect on LAN, which is gonna come in the game against them, obviously. So I think all in all, I think the nothing is really set in the group, but obviously the favorites has to be the 3 teams, Mouse, G2, and FaZe. But I don't see all 3 of them make it top 3 in the group. There must be someone um, like lose some games and some teams making some upsets, I think.
And what about OG? You didn't really touch on them there. What do you make of those guys?
Yeah, I think OG is a good team as well. I still think they need time.
Mm.
They when I watched last time Blast, they were not really sure who's doing what, calling what. So obviously, if they have been figuring that out now that Alexi B is calling all the time, then I think it's good for them. I think it's a tough group for them in the end, but this also gives them a lot of motivation, maybe more motivation than G2 us and FaZe to make it far in this group stage. So I think there's a lot of upset potential in the group. Like I said, OG can easily win 2 of the 3 top teams in the group, but also they can lose all 3, right? So
Yeah.
in the end, it just comes down to who has the best start to the group stage. Because I think if you win your first game in online, it's more like okay, we can actually win some games online. If you lose the first game, it's probably like you're really pressured to win the rest of the games to be the number 1, because you don't really want to be number 2 or 3, because there's so many things that can go wrong in the other groups.
Now, your first matchup is going to be going up against FaZe. Obviously, your ex team, we've seen the many back and forths you guys have had, but it has been mousesports coming out top on all of them, apart from one game, which was just the best of one you guys had against. But they've certainly looked a lot better recently. We just look at their performance at Blast. Is there anything you look at when you're kind of getting a bit of research and looking at the strategy and stuff that FaZe are doing? There's anything worrying for you guys, or do you still think it's going to be the same old story?
I mean, I don't think they've changed too much in the play style. I don't see like new innovative stuff for them. But what I think can talk for them is like basically their form has been really good individually. I've seen Rain making these performances like it is in 2018, Broky really showing up as well, and then obviously Colso and Nico. So I think it comes down to if they're gonna hit the same motivation and form online, then obviously it's gonna be really hard game. But all obviously we had some good matchup against them. But once again, it's different when you're playing here and you're not playing next to each other and you can stream a little bit and
Yeah.
like kind of like doing BM stuff. But I mean, it's gonna be a really good game, and it's also gonna be a good first game of the group for us to kind of see what we need to improve on for the upcoming group stage matches, because it is 5 matches you have to play, and each game is really important if you want to be the number 1 in the group and make it straight to the playoffs.
And in terms of looking at rosters within this group, especially, right, you guys, FaZe and OG, all like internationally mixed lineups of players coming in. Do you consider this to be something that's good? We're going to see more and more of throughout CS, because there is even more success being had there. And at the beginning, a lot of people thought, oh, okay, if you mix up this many nationalities and players, it's just not going to work.
I mean, obviously, I've said from the beginning I believe in the project, else I would not have made an international team. I would have been in a Danish team trying to become the best team in the world. What I've said to many other people is like, when you have international team, you can handpick players to what perfect role you want them, what kind of style of player you want in your team. In a domestic lineup, you can't really do that. First of all, if you're gonna pick a player, he's probably in a team already, and he's gonna probably be against the team you're competing.
Mm.
That means it's really hard to buy out a player, or there's some things that people know each other, they don't like each other. So like France CS for a long time was like some players couldn't play together,
Yeah.
even though if you look from outside, if those two could fix them issues with each other, they would be the best team in the world. So I think it comes down to that you can really handpick players into the role you want within your team, and you can always, in my opinion, replace players. Obviously, if you're best player in the world, it's hard to replace. But let's say we have a team that doesn't perform, it's easier to replace a player in this lineup than it is in domestic lineup. First of all, there's so many other players you can pick from. Um, the downside of it is obviously the communication and also maybe the moral of the team, the work culture, all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. You need really a good coach or in-game leader that can bring all these pieces together to work within a system, because each player have been playing in domestic lineup before, for example, and they have their own way of thinking, own way of playing as a team, structure CS, a very chaotic CS, or stuff like that. So I think all in all, if you can make that work as a team, which we have done now in Mouse as well, I think it's always good to have an internal team. So one thing is this, like the synergy and the communication with the team has to be just good enough for you to compete. It doesn't have to be picture perfect because it's never gonna be that in English.
And that brings me on to when you're talking about communication side of things is they you might have seen it yourself actually. The HLTV confirmed guys, they put together a little bet on whether an international speaking team can make it to the number one team in the world. And some of them, like Chad, for example, was thinking maybe not so because of the communication, that side of things. Others were saying it is possible based on like the raw skill and ability in there. What do you think of that? Are you aware of that little bet they've had? Have you seen the conversations?
I have not seen the conversation, but I heard about
Ah,
a team being top five or top three in the world for like 6 months,
mm,
which I think is perfectly possible. Like it is possible, and if it wasn't possible, I would not play in an international team because that's what I want to be in a top five
yeah.
team or a longer time period. You compete to be the best, and you may even touch the first place, the second place. So all in all, I think it's a fun bet to follow. But I also believe that our international team can be number one. I was with it in phase for like 2 months, so I believe it's possible as well now. The competition is being stronger, but if you look now, there's like G2 is basically also international teams,
Yeah.
so there's like two international teams in top five right now, which I think showcases that it is possible.
And in terms of when you're creating the international teams, like you touched on how you can pick the different roles and the players and that, and that makes it easier in that sense. But when you are trying to fix things like communication, how do you kind of get down to the nitty gritty of that? Because obviously, like you were saying, every player will have a different way of communicating based on where they're from, what teams they're in, and stuff. How do you kind of fix that yourself? Because I imagine you as like the mastermind of this, kind of trying to educate the rest of the players or teach them into the system that should work in this scenario.
I mean, what we're trying to do is basically using kind of in a way examples from military
Okay.
communication. Is very short term. So let's say you are boosted somewhere, you have someone in the back, you're really good position, but instead of trying to explain it, you just say you have a gap. That
Mm.
means everybody on the map knows that the gap means that a player is in a good position, and everybody should react accordingly to what's happening and make sure they understand the situation. So the player is not saying, "Wait, I'm in the back. Wait for me." Blah blah blah. All this communication is shortened down in one word, basically.
Mm.
So we're trying to do that as much as possible that makes sense. Something like it's saying, "I'm from behind. You should use all your nades on B because I'm in the back." You just say block B. So in that way, you shorten down the communication, and I think that's very important to have these kind of keywords, especially in an international team where you have to think really fast and make sure what you're saying is correctly. Because sometimes we have these issues where people are saying something, but it didn't really make sense in others' minds
Yeah.
how the situation was, right? So I think by doing that, I think that helps in long term. That everyone understands. Basically, a keyword means that everybody knows what's happening and they have to react in the player instead of the player has to explain what he sees. So that's something I think helps a lot, and just all the time make sure that you communicate good. I think I've been playing into the team for a long time,
Yeah.
so as a caller, I don't really see the issue. But I can imagine if somebody's calling domestically, like in Danish, for example, and suddenly switch to English, it's gonna take time as a caller, especially because you're talking a lot. You have to think really fast and say what you do. But as a player, I think it's easy to learn to speak English. It takes like 2 months, 3 months, and you can actually communicate. And obviously, also now with FPL, everybody's speaking English there. So in that way, you also train your communication on a basic level.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, like when you touch on the FPL side, for Rops, it was probably very easy for him to fit into that. He's always played top level on an international team, so him learning, I guess there was no adaptation needed. But when it comes to terms of say your strategies and stuff you want to use, do you ever have to maybe dumb it down a little bit more, so you can get the calls in, especially maybe at the mid rounds, or do you just make sure you have enough like set strats already planned in advance from doing your prep?
Like I'm doing a lot of mid rounds, so everybody understands the instance in the team. It's me who has to talk and think fast. So
Mm,
for that, it doesn't really matter with the communication. As long as I don't really do something wrong in my calls, obviously, with what I mean and what I say. So I think, like I said, as a caller, you have to be used to it, or you have to really adapt really fast. Because the longer it takes for the caller to get used to it, then it's really bad because you have to react fast. It, I mean, obviously, it matters if a player can't say name within a second. It takes 2 seconds for him to say what he wants to do, but it's even more worse if the caller can't really just react on what he sees and says what he needs to do, right? So
yeah.
as a player, we just train all the time. Make sure you give the right information. Um, it's basic CS, right? In that regard, that our communication will never be on the same point as Astralis. That means we can never really perfect it. You can have it as a good and a decent level, but then you have other focus areas, team, and once you have the communication on a level where you're like satisfied, because you can never really be happy about the communication in that regard, because it's never gonna be that good as a domestic team. So you just focus on other sides of your team, right? And you just slowly over time improve the communication. So at some point you're just used to it.
Now, one player I want to touch on within your lineup is Woxic. Now, when I first met him, this was years ago during his first EPL with Hellraisers. He was so excited. He was still struggling with like his English ability and what he was coming into, but he certainly had the raw skill. When it came to picking him for the lineup, what made you want to have him on the team? Because I've seen a huge change in him just in his ability and what he's been able to do since being on this mouse sport. It's like you've kind of unlocked another level in him.
I mean, when you look at a player like Voxic, which I did when we created the lineup, he's a very flashy AWPer. He has really fast reactions, some of the fastest I've ever seen. Played one of the best AWPers in my world in Guardian Device and Allure, stuff like that. So I I know when I see really talented guy with an AWP, there was some things with him. He was all peaking a lot. He was a very flashy AWPer. That's something you have to take out of him, but it's still part of his style, and that's the way he plays the game, right? So when we took him in, I told him how I want him to play, but I still want his own touch on his play. That means if he wants to peak in a very specific situation, he can do it. But he always have to think, what is the risk of me peaking, and if I die, what does it mean for the team?
Mm.
And I think over time he got really good with that. So sometimes I see him in like in the game demos, he's straight back and then he wants to peek and then realize, okay, this is not the time to peek. Where the old Voxic maybe in Hellraiser, he would just peek because he felt like he needed to do everything for the team.
Yeah.
So what was important for me to tell him back then is also now he knows that even if he dies, we can win a round, but he also knows he doesn't have to do everything for the team. That means if he gets a kill, he basically did his job of the round. He doesn't have to get 2 or 3 kills, which he probably learned in Hellraiser. If he didn't get 2 or 3 kills, he didn't believe they could win the round.
Mm.
So that's something you had to transform into him, and you really see that now that he believes the teammates more than he did before, I think, and it also shows his own play style, and this is more important that you don't take the best out of him
Yeah.
because that is the aggressive style is the main part of his play style, right? So if you put him in a defensive role all the time, he's not going to have the same impact, and then his confidence goes down. So it's a balance, and it's something we're still trying out. When can we unleash the beast, and when sometimes we need him unleashed, right? So all in all, he's doing very good job at the moment, and also one of the reasons why we achieved number two spot in the world a few months ago.
By the way, this is why I love interviewing you, because you've kind of touched on what my next question was going to be around this Woxy thing. Because what he said to me when he first joined mousesports, and he was explaining to me, this is just in like me and him being friends, having an outside of the event conversation. He kind of said that like Hellraiser, he was able to do a lot, but it was like you said, all on him. But then with you, he had a structure, he had a system he can play under, but also sometimes you can just let him go and he can do his thing of like he's feeling a game. So how do you work that out? Is that just more like, okay, we need to change something up and you decide time to let Woxit go? Or does he need to be maybe, I don't know, you've seen him hit a few more shots than usual or something like that? How does it work?
It depends a lot of the play style we play in the game. Like within the game, obviously in practice he wants to peek left, right, and up, down. He wants to peek everywhere.
Yeah.
So as a practice, I told him 9 or 10 times I'll tell you no in practice, but 9 or 10 times I'll tell you can do it in official game. Because I feel like when the orb is taking initiative, he's feeling the game. But when the orb is quiet, that means I need to activate and put in position where he can get going into the game. Because I've been playing a lot of Orbers, and you feel like if they have a good start to the game, they're here, they're there, left and right. They want to peek Ivy and train. They want to peek B. They want to jump out mid. But if they have a bad game, they tend to be a little more scared of these duels because they're not
Mm-hmm.
feeling the game yet, right? So it all depends on the situation, and also if I know it's a really really important round, that if we all gamble on Voxer getting a kill, he either dies or win the duel, I will not take it
Okay.
because it will hurt me as a caller. In the next round, I can get my system rolling. So if we really feel the momentum, there's a bigger chance I'll lease him. And if we start losing round, maybe I'll tighten in and do more structure so we go out as a team. So it depends a lot on my mood in that sense as well. That what
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling in the game and what I think is the right thing to do. But obviously, I can just put Voxic, go out B and Mirage alone, and we'd explode out A. Like he gets the kill, they all rotate, we explode on A, and like he just keeps going then, right? So it depends a lot on the situation and also obviously how Voxic feels. But I'll never tell him to do a peak if he doesn't like it for that. As an example. But I tell
Yeah.
him no sometimes in practice, but not really in official.
So there's a compromise with it as well. I like it. I like the system. It certainly is working out in sense of letting him go sometimes. Now, also with this lineup though, right? You've got such a varied amount of age here because you've got you and Chris who are around the same age, both 29, I believe, if I've got that correct. And then you've got the young guns in Woxic, Frozen, and Rops in there. Now, in some teams, even when they are all from one country, they're all on the same. They have like cultural differences. But when I see you guys at events and stuff, there's always jokes, there's always laughter. You guys seem to have that kind of down. So how do you work on that? Is there some sort of team bonding and stuff you guys do in any way, or is it just this is how it works?
I mean, you can't really force people to like each other, right? There's
Yeah.
some players of synergy outside and inside the game, and that's always something you have to work on. I mean, for example, me and Frozen is sharing rooms at tournaments. We have really good synergy on another level than I have with everybody else on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So me and him is joking around a lot, and I think that also helps him play better sometimes knowing he has a friend as well that's helping with everything else but inside the game. So for example, there I have really good synergy obviously with all the players, but there's some players you are feeling better within game and outside the game, right? That's you can't really change the nature of how people think. But I think just generally we are really good in the social part with the team, not as like we are always meeting and have to do stuff. But the bonding wise, is something we're working even more on to do to make sure we keep this bond between every player. Because the more you bond as a player and as a person in the team, there's a bigger chance if some issues are people are gonna talk more because they feel like you're bros. You don't know, like you're not just playing together, but you're
Yeah.
actually also friends. That means if some people have an issue with how guys play or how he acts to teammates, then you can easily tell it than being scared of telling to a guy you don't really talk with. So it's something we're working more on to make sure there's always this like transparency between all the players. And that's something we work on with our sports psychologists who help us bond these things more in and make it more a goal of it or why we bond as a team.
And you just touched on it there about sports psychology. I remember back at the major, we were talking about that with you guys. Have you managed to keep this consistently, having a sports psychologist and developing and having this added to you guys? Because, like we know, right, with many teams, you can have a lot of success in the early days and then things drop off and people struggle to see the reason why. So, every team's obviously got a different psychologist and how these things work, but I'm interested to know how it works for you guys and what stage you're at with it.
Yeah, so when we talked about the major, it was more like trying out
Mm-hmm.
to see how it goes, how people feel. Because first of all, you have to have the trust in the person you work with, and also
Certainly.
see if the synergy is there, and how it feels like a tournament is something people can and want to do. The decision was after major we are going full all in with it, and that was decided before China. So that was the real like first time we had a boot camp with main focus of sports psychologists working with us. So that worked out pretty good. So here comes the thing, right? We first of all we are having none bootcamp right now, and I think that's where we work the most with sports psychologists. So
Yeah.
we're looking into what we can do the coming months online, and work more with that on a frequent level. Because there's obviously an obstacle there that when it's online and when it's at a bootcamp, it will probably will feel different. So that's something we're working on how we can improve that, and obviously we had a bootcamp plan before major, like 8 days working with sports psychologists before the biggest tournament. So how that's gonna evolve, we don't know yet. We have to see. But I think all in all, it helps the team think in a different way, which I feel is very healthy from the younger players to actually get faster into professional mindset.
Yeah.
Some players have it, some players don't. First of all, me and Chris have been playing professional for a long time, so many of the stuff we get to know is actually something we didn't know why we do it, but you actually get the theory behind it.
It's
Where
like
the younger players are like,
reconfirming it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, basically you never understood why you're putting the same song on when I go on the stage. So basically get the theory behind stuff like that, and I think all that helps the team a lot, and I'm just like happy we have someone to work with who can be outside the team but still inside the team, and kind of guide the players to how to be more professional, how to think, and help them improve on all certain areas of the game, which they can't really do themselves.
And in terms of how it works for you and Regin, right? Does you having a sports psychologist that kind of take some extra pressure off you guys so you can focus more on like your roles?
I mean, in some way it helps, maybe with Alan, because obviously the sports circle is taking another step in that way, that if we have some issues where we talk as a team, that the sports psychology is taking the lead and talking within the team how we can improve and stuff. So the pressure in that regard of an argument and stuff like that, that's where Regin can be like a little more laid back and not always have to be the guy who's argumenting. So I think in some regard it takes pressure off the team. But obviously I'm not a sports psychologist, so it's not like an area of my leadership is taken away. But it's more like I have somebody to lean up towards to help me with some issues, and also if I feel something is wrong with the team, how can I tackle it better with my teammates, right? If
Yeah.
I'm very frustrated with a player, but he doesn't react good towards me, I can talk another way, because that way I get another view from a person, and I think that helps me as well as a person and as a player, and obviously as a leader as well.
And my final question here is going on a little bit more for Regin here because again we get to the point in CS where a lot of coaches, unless you're maybe Zonic for example, you don't get a lot of credit and an understanding of what actually your role entails. Now everyone knows with you, you're such an incredible in-game leader. You're working on the strategies and stuff. But what does Regin's actual role include, and how do you guys work together?
Yeah, I think obviously as a coach, you're always gonna be a little more in the back mirror of a car. I want to say in like the back seat of the car,
Yeah,
unless you're obviously Sonic and you're driving the car. But I think Regin is really doing a good job when it comes to managing the player, really getting closer to the players, talk with them. Because what we do, which I haven't done other teams, is basically each day after practice we talk half an hour to 1 hour about mistakes. We take up specific situations from the stream he recorded from the games, and we talk about how can we improve the communication
mm,
here in this round, or why did we peak this, or why did we do this as a team? How could we move to a better scenario, right? So he's not a guy who will tell you what you did wrong, but he will question in that regard, can we do this better as a team?
yeah.
And I think that approach he changed like the last few months, and I think also that helped with the sports psychologist is like, how can we approach it in a different way? Than instead of him saying you did a mistake, he will ask, how did we do a mistake as a team here instead of pointing on one player, this is bad, or for example, like something like that, right?
Mm.
So I think his approach changed a lot the last few months, also because he was pretty much a rookie coach coming into the team. I had to learn him a lot how to enter strat, and I think he took all it in, and now he makes his own way, so I can trust him in that regard. He obviously also comes with small inputs to tactics, but he also knew from beginning that I like to stand for my own strat book, and if he has something, he comes with small stuff. We have some Alan stuff here and there, smoke and Alan rush stuff like that. So I think he comes with small gimmick plays which we can use in our strat book really well, and I think he's doing a great job. He's really hardworking as well. So only good things to say from here.
Oh, brilliant stuff, man. Well, thank you so much for a deeper insight into mousesports, and good luck going forward into the rest of EPL. And next time I speak to Alan, I'm going to ask him what an Alan rush is, so just so I can steal it, do an Alan rush, and I'll have that in my own game as well, mate. But thank you so much for your time. That is another interview being wrapped up here for my YouTube channel. We're going to continue to pump these out across all of EPL. We're going to make sure there is some sort of content. Fuck the coronavirus and everything else that's going on. We're here to play some CS, enjoy some CS, watch some CS, and all that good stuff. So I'll see you guys on the next video.